Thank you so much for joining us today, Kaiser University Multidisciplinary Center, as we present Part 1, Promoting Literacy at Home, presented by Dr. Jessica Fuda Daddio.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I am Dr. Jessica Fuda Daddio, and I'm excited about today's presentation. And actually, part 2 is happening on Monday because it's for parents and promoting literacy at home. So I look forward to talking to everybody about this and kind of just getting back to the central idea of what literacy is and how we can really help our students or our children to continue using those literacy strategies at home. So we're going to talk a lot about those things coming up here, but a little bit about me. I am a professor here at Kaiser University and an academic advisor. I teach in the doctoral program of education. I come from being a teacher, and then I went into literacy consulting, more so a literacy specialist. So I worked a lot with the teachers and helped coach them in areas of literacy. And then I moved into higher education while at the same time consulting at school districts 7th through 12th grade, specifically in special education to help promote literacy skills. So that's kind of where I came from. And then I continue to work with teachers in literacy, as well as obviously teaching doctoral and master's students in areas of literacy, as well as educational leadership. So again, I'm happy to be here with you and talking about literacy. It is my passion. So hopefully you will take some great things away from today's webinar. What I will be doing a little different than maybe some presentations you've been to is I'm not putting all of the information in this PowerPoint. I'm going to take you into websites that would be great resources for you. If you ever should need to kind of come up with an idea or think of something to do with your child to help them continue in expanding their literacy possibilities. So the description of today's webinar, we are going to explore students' motivation in continuing their literacy learning at home. So especially with summer coming up, we want to make sure that our students, our children and the students are continuing to use the literacy strategies they've learned in school at home. So what does that look like? So if you're a parent that is looking for ideas to promote literacy without your child even realizing it, this is the webinar to attend. And I'll explain that in just a moment. The other thing I want to share is that it's hard to keep children motivated to continue to read while at home. If you think of yourself as a child, how often did you really go home and dive into a book? Some people are going to say, oh my gosh, it was my favorite thing to do, was just to escape into a book when you were young and maybe even now. I, however, even though literacy is my passion, it is everything that I do, that is not what I did. I actually hated to read when I was younger. I struggled with it. It was not fun for me to do. And because of that, I would shy away from having to do it at all. What I found, though, was the way that I became so passionate about literacy was because of what it really means, and also because it is everything that you need to be successful. I also learned through my process that reading and literacy is not about a book. It's bigger than that. And so we're going to get into that here and talk about ways to help your child to feel successful, but also to realize what literacy truly is. And I've presented a few webinars where I seem to talk about that a lot. But to me, it's extremely important to always start out explaining what literacy truthfully is. So that way we really can help our students to be successful, and especially in life, right? So we're at a transitional phase for many of you with your child being in middle school or high school. And so how do we help them to be successful in life through the lens of literacy? So the objectives for today, we are going to explore the definition of literacy, but just briefly. The participants, let's see. We're going to learn how to promote literacy at home, explore real life literacy opportunities, and discuss activities that can keep students diving into literacy. So one of the most important things I can share with any parent is that the power of literacy. It's everywhere. I tell teachers this a lot, and I think that what happens is we kind of get caught up with standards and things like that in the schools and trying to get students to pass tests and do those things that we forget sometimes what literacy truthfully is. And so, as parents, too, because we have certain demands coming from the schools or from teachers or from whoever, to get our students reading or getting our children reading, we can sometimes get caught up with what literacy, the definition of literacy being more so reading and writing. But in all actuality, as I shared with the teachers on Monday, right now you are actively using literacy through reading and listening to this presentation. So if you're sitting here now and you're looking at the PowerPoint and you're hearing me speak, you are utilizing literacy. It is happening right now, and it's not in a book. When you're driving and stop at that stop sign, it's literacy. And your brain is comprehending that the red sign, this is STOP, means to stop, right? That's true of any sign. When we see the McDonald's sign, we know that that's McDonald's. We don't have to read anything to know that. We comprehend certain things and aspects within our life that help us to know what something is. Comprehension being the center of what literacy really is. So with that thought process, just signs alone are literacy. And when we're thinking about our children who are in middle to high school, we need to think about this idea of what do they need to know to be successful outside of school. And so as simple as a stop sign is something that they need to know, which is part of literacy. Another piece is going to a restaurant. So if you take your child to a restaurant and they look at the menu and decide what they want to eat, whether it's through a picture on the menu or if it's through the actual writing of the item, it's literacy. They're reading. And then when they order, they're speaking. And when they're asked what they want as a side, they're listening and making a decision. All of those pieces are literacy. So those are things that we could be doing with our children to help them even further along in this aspect of literacy. We also need to make them aware that that's literacy. So that way they realize it's not about just sitting down and reading a novel. It is about this type of exchange, this conversation, this looking at something and knowing what you want, comprehending those types of things that are beyond just reading a book. As I shared with the teachers on Monday, the happy birthday card. So that's somebody's birthday and you fill out a card, you sign your name. You're doing literacy, right? You're reading the card to make sure it's a happy birthday card and then you're signing it. So literacy. Anything that involves texting, emailing, social media in general, it's all literacy. So when we're telling our students, okay, put that down, go get a book and read your 20 minutes. They have actually been reading the whole time. So I can share with you a friend of mine is somebody who tells me constantly that they hate to read. They hate it. And this person is 47 years old. So you're like, okay, how do you hate reading? Because what's funny is that he's constantly reading all of the time. He's always on his phone reading articles and news articles and sports articles and all of these things. It's a constant base of reading. So it's not that you hate reading. It's that maybe whatever you're trying to get your child to read is something they're not interested in. And so we need to look bigger than that, right? So what are they really interested in? And if it happens to be something on their cell phone, is that a bad thing? Not necessarily, but I will say technology and communication and interaction, I think maybe that would be a whole different conversation, right? To be able to get them to actually have a conversation with somebody else. As we know with texting and things like that, we've kind of changed the landscape of interaction, which is interesting because I was just talking to a master's student actually, and the big thing that employers are looking for right now in the people they're hiring aren't so much technical skills, like whether or not they're capable of doing the job. It's soft skills. And soft skills is this idea of communicating and feeling empathy and knowing how to respond to a situation. It's the emotional aspect of being a person. And like I said, how you connect with others. And that soft skill that the employers are currently looking for a lot right now, it's all literacy based, because that's what literacy is, this idea of being able to communicate with one another and comprehend and understand how to react. So it's an interesting fact. And I don't know, like this isn't a presentation on technology, but has technology somehow impacted how we communicate or feel empathy for somebody else? I don't know. Whole another presentation. We'll find out if that becomes a webinar. All right. So literacy is, I kind of shared this already, but it's reading. Doesn't have to be a novel. It's writing. It doesn't have to be an essay. It's thinking, right? How do you think about a situation? What thoughts come to your mind? Where are you comparing it to, given your background experiences? It's speaking. It's being able to have a conversation. It's being able to talk about what you're learning, talk about how you feel, ask people how they feel. Through those questions, we move into this idea of listening. Listening is extremely important in literacy, especially because if one of our main aspects is soft skills for employment, we have to be able to not only speak, but also be able to hear, right? So we need to be able to listen and understand and then be able to react to that. So all of these aspects are literacy. And it's just important at this point when I consult with the high school teachers, they're always telling me the struggle of reading, and they're teaching the students out of a text, or not a textbook, but out of a book. And if a student has been struggling since elementary school with reading out of a book, they feel defeated, and we have to change that feeling. And that can happen at home. And so that's the exciting part of all of this. It can happen at home, that we start to make the connection of what's happening at school and help to motivate our students to feel successful in this idea of living in the real world and understanding what literacy truthfully is. So motivating your child. If we think back to when we were in middle and high school and you think about how you felt, what you lived through, maybe you were super popular and you didn't have anything to worry about, but even the most popular child struggles. So when we think about that, there's all of these other aspects that come along with helping to motivate our child. If they're feeling down, if they feel alone, if they feel like they're not good enough, they're not worthy, any of those feelings will impact the way that they take on any type of academic, especially literacy. A way that I have motivated children to read, though, is if they're struggling with something, there's typically somewhere or something we can get into through a literacy aspect that may help them overcome that. And it might be as simple as just reading a quote and talking about that quote and what it means and how it can change our perspective. So all of those types of conversations increase and motivate our child to understand what the world's about, which we're all still trying to figure out, but also has them thinking about it's literacy, because we have them thinking about what this means and what reading is. And what literacy is, it's all about making meaning and making connection. And so when you think of it from that kind of simplistic definition, everything around you is literacy. And I feel like I just keep saying the same thing, so I'm hoping you're all hearing me, but everything around you is literacy. It's everywhere. Anytime you're thinking about something, anytime that you look at something and you comprehend something new, it's all literacy. So let's motivate our children. What can we do? Well, the first thing you can do is help them. Help them feel that internal fulfillment of what they are capable of. So if they've struggled along the way as a learner, as a person, as who am I, as finding their identity, we really need to have those conversations with them to help motivate them to realize how worthy and capable they are, right? And try to take away some of those inconsistencies that they feel. And when I say that, I mean that respectfully, because all of us have those moments where we don't feel good enough. And and you need those in order to grow, right? They kind of force us to grow. But if we have, our child has been struggling and it's been ongoing, we need to somehow find success and let them see it, their success. Celebrate the small accomplishments. And that shouldn't always be through an external reward. And what I mean by that is, okay, great. So you get an A in a test here's a, and I don't even know what's popular now in games, but maybe a Nintendo Switch, right? So we reward them with an external item for something they did well. So just be careful of that, because what you'll notice, and maybe, along your way here, you've noticed that every time that they do something well, they expect something in return. And that's not how life works. Unfortunately, you have to find within yourself an internal gratification, an internal excitement for your own accomplishments. But to celebrate just means to bring it to life, like bring it to light, acknowledge the beauty and everything that they're doing that's so well, and then make the things they need to work on a little bit smaller in the sense of everything that's going on around them. Empower them. So through celebration, we empower them. We don't enable them, and we certainly don't try to get them to feel entitled, but we empower their ability of being able to do great things. And by doing that, again, we switch that feeling that I can't do this to, maybe I can. And what are the tools I need to do that? Right. And then they're going to start to research to find out, what can I do to be better at this? We empower them to do that. Provide. So provide your child time to share. If that's at dinner time, if it's, just you in the car driving home from school, you pick them up and you're driving them home, or maybe it's just those little exchanges before bed, whatever it might be, allow them time to truthfully share how they feel, what happened during the day, just something, maybe make that part of your day with your child. So guide students' understanding of what literacy really is. And what I mean by that is help the middle and high school students, especially high school students or children, understand what literacy truthfully is. It is not realistically about reading a book. It is about everything else around them, and help them to see that so they realize they can do, rather than feeling always as if they cannot. So let's talk about summer motivation and changing the landscape. So since we know that a lot of times middle and high school students that have struggled since elementary school in the area of literacy or reading specifically, do you feel that feeling of defeat and therefore don't want to do because it's hard? Then we need to find a way around that. It doesn't mean around learning how to read. It does mean, though, to help them make connections with why they're doing it. It's like setting a purpose for why it's important to be a reader. But some of the things that are super important when it comes to motivation is to allow experiences to happen, so that way they have that in the back of their minds to bring to light when they are learning something new. And that actually will help with motivation. It will help in this area of literacy. So the more opportunities that you can give your child in experience, the better. And on Monday, I'm going to talk to you. So if there's like reasons that, maybe you can't leave the house, maybe, there's, other things going on that would cause you not to be able to bring them somewhere. I'm going to show you on Monday some different ways that we can overcome that to still give them that background knowledge to be able to make connections to further their comprehension. But even with that being said, there's lots of free ways to free and actually right outside your door ways to encourage literacy. And one thing would be to go for a walk. So they can go for a walk with a friend, they can go for a walk with you, whatever it might be. And the idea during that walk is the exchange of conversation. And that exchange of conversation, again, is so simple, is literacy. It's this idea that they're listening, they're speaking, they're comprehending. And a lot of teachers have said to me before that students struggle with comprehension, which is why we read. And the comment I get a lot is they can't do it, which is almost, it's not impossible, but maybe they can. Because if they understand what you're saying to them, then they have oral comprehension. The literacy is there. The possibility is there. What the holdup is maybe some type of piece of the reading puzzle. And I'll get into that when I'll be talking about comprehension a little later on. I believe in June, but I'll be talking a little bit about what that looks like to help them to be able to comprehend whenever there might be a struggle with some of those basic skills for reading. So go to a restaurant. So I shared earlier that literacy is certainly sitting there at a restaurant, looking at a menu and placing an order. Now, you don't have to go sit at a restaurant to do that. You can make a menu yourself and have them look at that and see what's for dinner. So the simple things like that, they can even go online. Like if you use Uber Eats or Grubhub, and they can see the menu there and be able to place their order. All of that is a process of life skills technically, as well as comprehension. Read a news article and talk about it. So one of those things, and even if you're watching TV and like on a news channel, underneath there's always all this writing or letting you know what the basis of what's being talked about is there, especially in news. And so you can even discuss that. So it says this, what do you think that means? Or have them read it to you. Let them discuss their future goals with you. Is there something they really want to do, something they want to become, something that drives them? And maybe whatever that might be, it's going to be a basis of literacy to help them get there. So just like I said earlier, one of the main things employers are looking for right now are not technical skills. It is soft skills, and soft skills are literacy. So if they have a future goal of something, express to them the importance of literacy in that sense to help them get there, right? So being able to have those conversations, being able to speak, being able to write, being able to listen, all of those pieces will help them get to that future goal. It's not a bad idea for them to write down what their goals are. Like, what would you like to do? Or, if they're a senior in high school, where do you want to go? What are your dreams? And how will you get there? And have them write those down and then talk about them. Those conversations are so critical and so important and help the students to continue to stay motivated towards their goal. And when they forget what their goal was and they feel defeated, they can go back to that writing and say, okay, this is what I'm doing and this is why I want to do it. Play a video game. I mean, that sounds crazy that I would say that, but actually, I can't even tell you how much reading happens in a video game. I shared on Monday that when the pandemic happened, I got a Nintendo Switch and I started to play one of the video games on there. Oh gosh, right now I can't even think of the name of it. But anyway, it'll come to me. But that video, it's all reading. Like in order for me to have been successful in playing the game, I had to read a lot of stuff in order to do that. So, those types of video games, actually any video game is an idea of comprehension and planning and problem solving. All of it's happening there. So if you have a gamer that you live with, that is your child, maybe it's not that you have to promote that, but maybe you have a conversation about it. If they are playing video games, they are capable of every type of literacy. So that's really important for us to start to see and start to realize. Again, I wouldn't promote, video gaming, 24 hours a day, because we need to go back to soft skills and this idea of being able to communicate successfully to another person live, right? That does need to happen. So we don't want them playing video games all the time. Dancing to music is a form of art. It's also a form of literacy. It helps them to kind of bring their personality to life. And again, it brings us back to soft skills, but dancing is such a powerful thing. And also music in general, this idea that music is poetry. And when we start to realize that, we realize that the people that we love, these singers and songwriters, are very much embracing this idea of literacy. So they start to realize that, oh, wow, like these people I look up to, these people that I listen to are all people of literacy. So there is power in this. What we're doing is erasing all of those pieces that they felt that they were incapable of and showing them the purpose behind what literacy is and really the power behind it to change somebody's mood. Think about the music you've listened to in the past where you could listen to a song and it can make you cry. You could listen to a song, it can make you dance and happy. So those feelings, those emotions, you're comprehending what's happening in that song, which is creating a feeling in you. that feeling, that emotion is part of soft skills. And so when we take that idea and we're able to combine that idea with what's happening out in the world and how we connect to others, we begin to create this amazing experience of literacy for our child. So write a story. That's another one. So we can always, like, if they're storytellers, orally, maybe we can get them to write their story down on paper, because a story, like I said earlier, with the whole novel ideas, it helps us escape a little bit, right? Escape from the real world. The real world is a hard place to live in. So maybe if we take our thoughts and our, what we can see, taking somebody on a journey through a story. And like I said, if your child's naturally a storyteller, then why not get them writing? Or even don't, if writing is something, because remember, writing is really difficult. It's a lot harder than what we realize as adults because we become automatic to it. But there's a lot of things happening with people that are writing, especially with fine motor skills, things like that. So if that's an issue, fine motor skills, the oral storytelling is a beautiful thing to do. And they can do that through, recording themselves. They can use different types of tools on the computer. So that way the computer writes the story for them as they speak. But all of those pieces are really powerful that we should be embracing and allowing our children to do, so they can feel this piece of literacy that they naturally have that maybe they felt defeated with all along. Journal writing, is a great idea too, just to share how they're feeling. I'm not talking about a diary. I'm just simply talking about maybe journaling some ideas and some thoughts. Watch a movie and discuss it afterwards. So a novel, right? Those big 300-page books, those books are just a movie, technically, the fiction ones. So if they're a movie, then why not embrace this idea of watching a movie together and talking about the characters or the conflict that happened? Or, how do you feel about the story? Why do you feel about the movie? Why do you feel that way? Those conversations and those questions will help that, your child be, think about that importance of that connection of the people within the movie and be able to take that on even themselves. If they love to act out and do things like that, they can certainly sign up to be in a play. This is a great thing to do. They can even create a play on their own and present it to the family. So we always want to go into that creative gene. If they have that, let's go ahead and promote that. Singing, they can write a song, write a poem, read a book. So all of those things, any of those things are motivation for the summer. You do not need to read a novel or a book 20 minutes a day to embrace literacy. So when we open up our ideas and our minds to this idea that literacy is everywhere, we can motivate our child to continue to embrace literacy at every aspect and every level that allows them to feel success and allows them to not feel so defeated by the idea of literacy. So I'm now going to take you into a couple websites that I have found that I think could be beneficial to some ideas of things that children could do during their time in the summer. And a lot of times, I just want to share, schools have a lot of different types of camps that your child could attend. So if that is something that, they'd like to do, is attend one of the camps or summer school or something like that at school, then that's great. So just be aware of what those might be. So you can ask your teacher about those. So these are the 2021 summer camps and this is in the Fort Lauderdale area, by the way. So you can find these not only just in Fort Lauderdale, obviously, but also in many other places close to you. And actually this year, even though I'm saying Fort Lauderdale, there's a lot of different areas that this looks at that you could send, your child to a summer camp. So if they like robotics, if that's something they're interested in, everything is literacy. Let's just keep that in the back of our mind. So that would be something you might want to look into. There's ideas of, let's see, a magician's camp. I mean, why not, right? That's 6 to 12 years old. So they're a little bit younger, but the middle school students would still fit in there. But there's a ton of different camps. And what I want you to keep in mind is some of these can be pricey. Some of them, though, aren't too bad. And some are free. some of the summer camps. So take a look at this website because this could be really, really great for your child to get involved in. It also helps them to feel as if they're part of a community of some kind, like minds. We always love to be around people with like minds. So if they're into STREAM, which is just science, technology, math, engineering, like that, if they're into that, then let's get them into something that makes them feel like they're with like-minded people and they continue to do all of the great things that they can do through that literacy base, but in the area they love. There's speech and debate. So if you have a child that likes to debate you a lot, maybe they need to get into this 2-week virtual camp for 6th to 12th graders in speech and debate events. Could be kind of neat for them to do. And it is virtual, which is also really nice too. So you won't have to, drive them anywhere or drop them off, and they won't have to drive anywhere or be dropped off. So anyway, so I guess I don't have to go through all of these. School of Rock. I mean, there's so many great things that they can get into. But again, ask your school too about what camps they might have available for your child free of cost. And they do have some. So that would be really beneficial for a lot of the students in the summer. So there is this one for the camps. And again, let me see the website. This is for 2021. It's on the Sun Center. So I think that you could, again, take a look at this website, find some camp that maybe your child would be interested in. The other one here, this is for Fort Lauderdale specifically. This one is, there's a community camps. These are of cost, but I still thought it was important to show you. So you can see the many different places where different community camp locations are, which again, any of the community parks, things like that, you can always go there, go for a hike for free and be able to like look at different things that you find on your hike, that this is still going to allow background knowledge to be built for your child to compare things to. Community pools. Okay. So there's middle and high school camps. You can see this here on the right-hand side. So over here, so you can see the different dates. There's 2 different sessions. One's coming up here not very long from now. And they also have the after-hour care. So if you're working and then want to go pick up your child after, you can. And you can see the different prices. So it can be pricey. But if you do both sessions, it looks like it's $140. So if that's something that you could do, then I would definitely get into that. So there's that. And then what I wanted to go to next is this idea that if camp is not something that we're thinking we would want to do, and that's okay if you don't. The other thing is to allow some really great experiences as families together. And something that somebody asked me once is, do you do a lot in your area? And I live in a place where there's a lake right here, plenty of places to hike. And honestly, I haven't. I have not gone out and investigated my own area. We always leave to go on vacation somewhere else. But really, vacation is right in your backyard. So in Fort Lauderdale and the South Florida area, there's a ton of great places to take your child to build on their background knowledge, which again impacts their comprehension in comparison to anything that they may read or any kind of situation they might be in. So in the area of Fort Lauderdale or the South Florida, I was so excited to see Butterfly World. I was like, oh my gosh, I would 100% be going there. But you can also watch it on YouTube. So let's say that you can't go physically. That's okay. Watch on YouTube. Watch what's happening over in Butterfly World on YouTube. But there's Arts of Illusion, which is super cool and would definitely keep children that are into that type of thing really embracing what they're seeing. Anything they see and anything that they bring into their memory is part of literacy. There's horseback riding. There's so many great things that they can do. And again, all of this is right in your backyard. There's also, of course, the county parks and recreations that you can take them to. But there are a lot of things you can do right from your home. And all of that, again, the way to allow your child to continue and stay motivated is to allow them to have these wonderful experiences, which I will tell you as somebody that consults for school districts, one major thing that will hold a child back in reading and writing are experiences. So if they come with limited experiences, we do find that there has to be a lot more, I would say, a lot more background information needed in order for a child to move forward. So the more experiences, as simple as going for a hike and the experience of that, the more experiences we can give them, the better they're going to do in school. And so that's why I share this with you, like just the simple Visit Lauderdale website that has all these amazing things you can do. But anything that you do with them is going to allow for an even deeper understanding of the world around them, which then helps them with comprehension and things in school, in literacy specifically. Okay, so 100 summer fun ideas for kids and parents. Now, these can be kind of goofy sometimes, right? Like, but sometimes not. Go bird watching. So, as simple as sitting out, you don't have to go anywhere. You can go sit outside in your back deck or wherever in the grass and just look and watch the birds fly by and talk about them and the freedom they have and flying and would you want to fly and blah, blah, blah. Like those types of conversations are so incredible and really can make a difference. You can grow different types of herbs, things like that is also to watch the process of that growth, which is more science related. It's still literacy and it's an experience, and they'll be able to discuss that and talk about it. And it's an experience that they'll have that maybe others won't have, that they'll be able to teach other people about it. Something I used to love to do as a child and even still today is look at the clouds and talk about the shapes of them. You know, what do you see? It's kind of like an ink blot test. So look at them and try to figure out like, what is this? And what does that look like? So it's so funny that I'm sharing all this with you because my thinking is I really do want to change the landscape of what we think literacy is and really bring us into this reality of real life, of fun, not so like we don't even realize we're thinking type activities, like looking at a cloud and deciding what we think it is and why. But that is thinking, listen to that, like look at a cloud. What do you think it is and why? Those are really deep conversations that you can have, all of which are huge for comprehension. One of them that I thought was kind of cute is if you have a child that's super into being creative, they can make a fairy house. So I thought that was really cute. They can pick blueberries. Now, of course, we want to teach them about some berries you shouldn't eat. But yeah, so you can plant, let's say that you go and you watch that webcam at the butterfly garden, then maybe they can create their own little butterfly garden right in front of your house. Rainy days, the movie marathon with popcorn so they can watch Netflix. Like it just seems like all of these things seem like, well, this is a lazy way of looking at literacy. It is not. These are very empowering. What comes along with it though are the conversations. Those are really important to have. So you don't want to just do something and then not talk about it. Talk about it and they'll embrace that idea and realize that literacy is a lot bigger and wider than they thought. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to at-home literacy activities because I also thought that this was really good and actually goes off of this idea of the conversation. And that's talk, language acquisition. So this really does kind of go back to what I was talking about, going for that nature walk or a hike, storytelling. But the thing that I really felt was powerful about this website specifically is questions that you can ask your child. Okay, so like it actually gives us examples. And those conversations we have with them will, again, encourage discussion, encourage thinking, encourage a sense of empathy. And those pieces, as I said earlier, are the important parts of getting a job now. So, because we have a lack in that. So things that you can ask your child that would really help to embrace those thoughts. What was your favorite part of the day? So I always ask my nephew that, you know, so maybe we'll go do something, we'll have some fun together, whatever it is that we do. And then at the end of the night or the end of the day, I always ask him, what was your favorite part of the day? What did you love most? I do the same thing with anybody I'm on vacation with. At the end of the day, it's like, what was your favorite thing about what we did? How about what made you laugh this week? Ask yourself that. Was there any moment that throughout your day that just, or your week that just made you laugh, like that belly laugh feeling? What brought you joy? Talk about that discuss it. What surprised you this week? So what happened this week that was surprising, and why was it surprising? So we're looking for this open-ended question. So that way there's explanation, there's conversation, and there's depth. You can ask what made you curious this week. What do you hope will happen next week? So what do you hope will happen next week? I'm careful with those future type conversations, but at the same time, what do you hope will happen next week? So this week, all of this happened. We had some really great times. Things made us laugh. We were confused about some stuff. And then, well, what do we hope will come next week? And maybe it will, and maybe it won't. But either way, those conversations, embrace those. If we want to motivate our children at home and get them to want to learn, then allow them to have these opportunities for conversation, allow them to talk about what they hope, what they dream, and then help them to get there. And the way to do that is to allow them to stop feeling defeated if that's the case, and start to embrace this idea of literacy beyond a textbook, beyond a book, beyond a novel, and realize what they really need to know to be in the real world. Now, with that being said, please don't get me wrong. In school, the way that literacy is often taught, reading specifically, is through a book. And that's okay. And we embrace that idea. We do. It's important because it's through those types of activities they do at school that are going to help them when it comes to that more critical type reading. But when it comes to literacy as a whole, it is bigger than reading. It is so much bigger than reading. And you as a parent are very capable. And even if you are a struggling reader yourself, it's okay to talk about that and talk about what that makes you feel like, and talk to your child about it. I think those are really important conversations to have. So they know, okay, so they know how it feels, they know what's going on, then they can figure out what they can do to maybe even teach you, right? I mean, like at the end of the day, we want them to be teachers of something. Everybody is. So maybe the literacy aspect is what they become a teacher of. It's what I did. All right, so let's see. You can also play the game of finish the sentence. So today I played, and that could be anything they played. What do you wonder about? Right? So maybe you're driving in the car and you just say to your child, what do you wonder about? Like, what do you think about? Ask them what they worry about. Like, what are their greatest worries and why are those their worries? If they're reading a book, or if you've decided that you are going to start to read to them, or however you decide to do this, the big thing about stories, so when I would read to my students back when I was a classroom teacher, it became habit for us to discuss not only what the book was about, the conflict, the characters, the plot, but the most important thing about those readings were what was the moral of the story. And what I mean by that is, so from reading the story, what did we learn? And that piece of the reading that we do, that is why we read. We read to learn. And whether that's through fiction or nonfiction books, it is the purpose behind reading, is meaning making. It's figuring out, what did you learn from experiencing this book? It's like watching a movie. What did you learn from experiencing that movie? It's the same idea. So that question is so powerful. And it should always be at the end of any book. On Monday, I'm going to get into this idea of reading aloud to your child. And you're probably like, wait a minute, no, it's a high school student. I'm not reading aloud to them. But in all actuality, there's so much power to that. To reading aloud to them, even at the high school level. And that is something when I'm consulting with teachers that I talk to them about. It's not about just, making the student read. You need to model what good reading looks like. And help them, or maybe you switch and you read a page, they read a page, but you're involved in the process. Leaving a child on their own to struggle through a book is not the answer. The answer is to be involved and to continue to be involved and have conversations. And your motivation to do that, well, and you're not your motivation, but you're doing that will motivate your child to want to do it and want to do better at whatever it is that they're doing. So be involved. I don't know how You got to be involved, have these conversations. Word scavenger hunts they can do. And then we get into some other like silly name games. There's a bunch of little things that you can do with your child just to kind of keep them involved, a guessing game. And it's so funny because, like, again, all of this is literacy. So this website here, I do think is very powerful, and it definitely gives you a lot of really wonderful things to do. So I would firmly suggest checking it out. And they talk about the pillars of reading, or not reading, I'm sorry, literacy in general. So we're not specifically talking about reading today. We're talking about everything. I'm not going to go into too many more of these. We'll be wrapping up here shortly. But yeah, so you can, here's the partner reading. These are the different types of readings you can do with your child, which would be like echo reading, like I read something, then they read something, usually with a short passage. So you can do that. Authentic materials are my favorites because we don't want to have students just reading books because that defeats them. Like I said, especially if they've been struggling since elementary school. So instead we bring in authentic, real stuff, right? Reading an advertisement. What is that advertisement trying to tell us? Cereal boxes. I remember when I was younger, I could read a cereal box. I might have struggled in a book, but I could read a cereal box. How about making dinner with you and reading the recipe? Super powerful. So that is still something, and it also brings you together to create that relationship with your child. Magazines, bulletin boards, any of those things that are naturally going to be in their life, if we can get them to see those and understand that that's reading, that's literacy, we change the landscape. Anyway, okay, so there's all this great stuff. So definitely check out this website, probably one of my favorites for sure, in helping us to think of different ways to engage our child in a real life experience of literacy. And it's right at your fingertips. Everything that this is saying to you pretty much is something you can do right outside your front door or in your house. So reading in the living room, right? All right, so with all of that, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, maybe. 1 second. And there it is. All right, so we talked summer camps, family activities that you can do right in front of you, which would be at that Fort Lauderdale website. But again, you have a website at, wherever you live, there's a website of things that you can always do and find out what's out there that maybe you didn't even know is right in front of you. Summer fun activities. And then we wrapped up with that last website, which is, again, super powerful. Check it out, and maybe you'll have some new ideas and ways to really engage and have those conversations with your child and change the landscape of what they believe literacy is, so they know that they can be empowered, and yes, they can reach the goals that they're looking for. I thank everybody. I don't know if anybody has comments or questions. I can certainly answer those now.